Well, good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021 and back to my allotment channel. It's January the 3rd. This is my first day up here this year. Who knows what this year holds, both in the wider society and on my allotment. But I have to say, and I'm not going to dwell on it, I don't have any optimism for the wider society. I think things will go from bad to worse. However, I've said before, and I shall say it now, I have found in my life as a natural cynic that my allotment has made me a lot more optimistic in the way I approach things I do. And so it is with the allotment. I think the optimism has evolved when talking and thinking about things I have some control over. And that's why I have no optimism at all about the wider society. But the allotment is a completely different thing. It proved to be my wife and I's greatest asset last year, and I shall talk about that more in a second, because I have mentioned before that my wife has diligently added up the financial cost of all the produce we've taken off this plot in the previous year. And you know, now it's the end of the year, we totaled it all up, and I can give you that figure, and I will do that in a minute. And I'm very pleased with it. Yes, so but not just from a financial point of view, from an emotional and a social point of view. All the family, when they visit, they come up here whether they like it or not. And Cheryl doesn't particularly like coming up here, certainly not in the winter. But as I've said before, you know, when we met, I was a boy soldier, and when we married, I was a young sapper, or you know, the equivalent of a private in the Royal Engineers. And throughout our first 30 years of marriage, I was in the armed forces, which involved an awful lot of separation. None of which we enjoyed, but we got used to it. And so now that I've, you know, for the last 12 or so years I've been a civilian, we still value that little bit of time apart, albeit rather than 4 or 6 months at a stretch, it's now about 10 hours when I'm up here. But we both value our time apart. She'll be in bed right now having a lay-in on a Sunday morning, and she will get up and she will potter around the house and do all the things she likes to have done before the working week. And I'm up here and I do my thing. And I think that's invaluable. I think my personal opinion is that the best relationships are those that encourage and value a little bit of time apart. Anyway, that's my deep thought for the moment. So, on the allotment, I will talk in a moment when I get in the shed. The shed's very dark at the moment. The stove is on, the kettle's on, but it is very gloomy in there. So when the light gets better, if it does, I will sit in the shed and I'll talk through a few thoughts over last year and a few more thoughts over the coming year, which I'm really excited about. I got this allotment in March 2017, so 17, 18, 19, 20. This is actually I said in a previous video, it's my 4th summer. It's not, it's my 5th. And so there is a previous video that shows the evolution of my 2 plots. But, you know, in my 5th summer, they bear no relation, as you'd expect, to how they were 5 years ago. And I really feel this year it's sort of coming of age. Things, for example, like the blueberry bushes, which I bought 3 or 4 years ago, last year, we had a very mature crop from them. We froze a lot of them, and we're eating them now on our breakfasts and in our smoothies, etc. So yeah, a lot of the things that I planted, the perennials, you know, the fruit bushes and so on, the rhubarb, these things now really are coming to the fore and proving their worth. So as a plot, it really is quite mature now. I have no excuse for getting things wrong. That'll bite me in the backside later on this year, won't it? So anyway, welcome along. Thank you to all my subscribers. I have a wonderful little group of people who comment on my videos almost every time, and I really value your company and your input. So I hope this year proves to be everything that you and your family hope it to be, both in health and happiness, as I do for my own family, if there are any of you watching. So yeah, let's have a look around the plot, shall we? So you can see here the water that pools at the back of my plot that rolls down the hill. Now ordinarily last year that flowed through between my sheds and onto my plot. This year it's dropping into the Hanley Canal and is going around the outside of my plot and off down the side of Melvin's plot and onto the road and away. So none of this water here is coming onto my plot, which is good news. Here's my rather scruffy stores area, and that's my main effort today, is to tidy this all up. So I've got to take it all out the way, put in those two wooden crates. Actually, you can see one of them sat over there, and then replace it all. And we'll see how we get on with that. I am going to cut up the ground a bit, but it will recover. And Mick, for you, I do have my wellies. At the back here I've built a bit of a berm to direct the floodwaters into the Hanley Canal, and when I dug it, these daffodils were dug up with the soil, so I've planted them in that berm, and lovely to see them coming up, something to look forward to. Well, it's fair to say I've made a bit of a mess. Making the mess is the easy bit. Now I've got to put it all back together. But I'm glad I'm doing this, because I didn't realise just how much junk and rubbish I've got. And John has got one of those dustbin incinerators. So when I see him next, he hasn't been up for a few days, but when I see him next, I'm going to ask to borrow it and have a little fire out in front of my shed and get rid of the majority of this, because I simply don't need all this junk, and I'm not hoarding. There's simply no point. I haven't used any of this in a year, and if I haven't used it in a year, I'm not going to. So apart from the old fence posts, which will serve a purpose at some point, that's all going. And in the spirit of ever improving allotments, I've decided I'm going to make a bit of a mini soakaway there. So I've put the stick in to mark where I think it needs to go, where the low point of that dip is. And as I cleared out all that junk, I found that piece of piping, which is almost the perfect length for my little soakaway into the Hanley Canal. So, and for those who don't know, I mean, I keep talking about it as if you all know, but if you're new to my channel, the Hanley Canal is just a laughable name for the little ditch that I've dug that goes all the way around my plot, taking away all this flood water that comes down the hill into my allotment. So the Hanley Canal is not actually a canal, if you're looking out for lock gates, etc. Right, let's put it all back. Well, sometime later, and I'm very happy. That's all much neater, and most importantly, I can now walk up to this area and take whatever canes or bits of wood and so on, netting and chicken wire that I need, without having to reach across and jump on top and all the rest of it. So yeah, very happy with how that is. And I think that's the major job that you know, if you've got a kitchen garden or an allotment, winter time is a time for planting, for planning for next season, what bed is doing what rotation you're working, and for tidying up these areas that through the year it's so easy in the summer just to walk over here behind the sheds and throw stuff there where it's out of sight, out of mind. So I'm very happy with that. Oh well, welcome back inside the shed. Just had my first brew of the day. And I'd like to introduce you to my new friend. Now that is a teapot. When I was a soldier, you used to go to a cookhouse, not the more modern ones, which are a bit like motorway service stations, but the old proper good army cookhouse. You used to be able to get a pot like that, and you'd have a 10-man table, and one of you would go up and put the tea in it, put the tea bags in, bring it back to the table, and it had a handle front and rear, and one of you would play mother, and you'd have enough tea to last your meal and a good natter beyond. And I saw those on Amazon or somewhere, and I thought, rather than that little thing I've got, which once I've had a brew out of it, I have to go and fill it up again in case someone comes along and wants some hot water. That holds 8 litres, so I fill that, not quite, but 3/4, so 5 or 6 litres when I get here in the morning, and I put it on the stove, and within 20-25 minutes it's boiling, and then I lift it up onto this little grill thing I've got, which gets it about 2 inches off the stove, and it ticks over on a light running boil throughout the day. Perfect. So when John turns up, rather than John uses gas, I've said to John, I don't use my gas unless I have to. Pop in here and just fill your cup. Well, he doesn't do that. I don't, it doesn't matter how many times you offer people, they don't like to walk into your shed and use your, But when he comes over for a brew and we have a natter in here, then I fill his mug. So it's a social thing, and a little sort of hark back to my military days. It reminds me of good times with good friends, putting the world to rights even then when I was in my mid-20s. So, on to more practical matters. This is the book that, just to introduce it, those who follow me will know this, and I apologise for wasting your time, but I decided to find out what the monetary value or estimate was of the produce I take off my plot. So Cheryl and I, at the beginning of the year, we walked around Tesco's back in the day when you could do it without wearing a muzzle, and we put down the price. Everything was organic, because of course everything up here is. All the organic prices of a cucumber or a little pot of blueberries, or whatever, all the produce that we take off of here, a bag of salad leaf, and we put the prices in here. And throughout the year, and I claim no credit for this, Cheryl, my wife, every time I brought stuff back from the allotment, she has weighed it if it needed weighing, priced it, and written it in this book. Now, just so you understand, I'm going to give you a total value in a minute. We haven't eaten that number, but it's gone in the freezers, or it's, it's either gone in the freezers or we've used it. So anyway, I valued it up over the months. Oh, now I've got to find the figure. Preparation and planning. Yes, so the grand total for the produce that I've taken off my plot this year is £914 sterling. Now, one of the allotments I watch is Steve's Seaside Allotment, and if you haven't seen his website or his channel on YouTube, I recommend you go and have a look. He runs his allotments, and I think he's got 3. One, his wife's got one, he's got one, and his daughter's got one. He runs it like a business, and I think he takes about £6,000-8,000 worth of produce off the 3 of them, and they feed their extended family, and they have a harvest day with all these plastic tubs and so on and so forth. So he leaves me standing with value. However, I don't run mine like that. I'm a lot less organised. Now that figure, £914, doesn't include, for example, back home I've got about 10 or 11 butternuts that we haven't used yet. I've got 12 Brussels sprout plants there that we haven't harvested completely yet. I've got a bed full of beetroot. I've got probably 50 leeks. None of that has been costed into this year. But from January the 1st to December the 31st, that's what we took off the plot, excluding what we gave to friends, family, and what I took to the shop, which was minimal this year because I'm not prepared to wear a face muzzle. So, yeah, I'm very happy with that. Now, of course, Cheryl says, where did all that money go? Well, of course, you know, we don't see that money because we don't spend it. But, I mean, I know that some days when the blueberry bushes, the fruit, the soft fruit particularly, is the high value produce. You know, a tiny little plastic tub of blueberries in Tesco's is £2. Well, there were days when I took a container home of blueberries and Cheryl weighed it and estimated it to be about £12 or £14 worth, money-wise. So anyway, I just thought you might find that interesting. I was fascinated by it. I thank my wife for being so diligent and conscientious and thorough. And I think that's, you know, and I'm not going to repeat that. I now know that. So I'm quite happy to say that we take about £1,000 worth of produce off my 2 plots every year. And one of the greatest pleasures I get is giving my fruits and vegetables to other people. You know, we grew so many cucumbers. I was giving cucumbers to neighbours and anybody who walked past, whether they want one or not. So, yeah, I hope you find that interesting. I certainly did. And the other thing, I'm sure if you've got an allotment or a kitchen garden that you're busy doing right now, is your seeds. It's interesting that I read something or I saw something on somebody's YouTube channel recently that said there may be a shortage this year of seeds, so you want to get your seed order in early. Now, I'm not sure there will be. I think what's happened is that the DT Brown in this little booklet, and I thoroughly recommend DT Brown, their seed catalogue, this one here, which I received in the post yesterday by fluke, more Jordan's luck, is by far the best. I get quite a lot of seed catalogues through the post because I've ordered from the companies from time to time. But this is the most comprehensive, the most useful. It's full of information apart from the seeds. So I can thoroughly recommend DT Brown's catalogue. And I've never had a duff seed off them yet. That's kissing, touching. Tempting fate. Tempting fate. Anyway, so I'm not sure that there's going to be a shortage, but what they've said in their book is that because in the factory or where, you know, where they produce their seeds, people had to be socially distanced. They had to space them out. Therefore, they lost half their workforce because they had to space them out. So they weren't able to produce as many packets of seeds. So there may be some truth to that. So tonight when I get home, I'm ordering all my seeds online, because last year I sent it in on paper with a cheque. But tonight I shall put in my order online and I'll see how we get on. So yeah, that's top job this week. Get my seed order in, and I'd recommend if you haven't done it, then get it done sooner rather than later. Well, through some of the foul weather of December, when there was absolutely nothing to do on the plot, this has been my major workstation. So I've been sawing wood, chopping wood, stacking wood. The shed is full, absolutely brimming with chopped kindling and firewood. I mean, effectively, the wood that I put in the Frontier stove is kindling, really. I mean, this is kindling in any other situation. But I've found over the years with the Frontier stove that the smaller the wood is, the better it burns in that small stove. So this has been a very busy area. Lots of old pallets, and this stuff, as I mentioned in a previous video, this is what the garden centre received all their Norwegian Christmas trees packed in and around, and they put it on their free wood pile just as I turned up, so I filled my shed. A real moment of Jordan's luck. It makes excellent firewood. So what else is going on? Those who are regular visitors to my channel will know that I had very good success with these tubs. In these tubs are a mix 50-50 of sand and soil, and I grew carrots in these 4, and I've got 2 more down the plot that I grew my parsnips in, and they were all superb. Very happy. And I've had a little stroke of more of Jordan's luck. Les, the chap who's taken over the golf driving range, inherited these tubs that the chap before him, Liam, I don't know what I think he used them to to put golf balls in when he was picking them up off the range, and then they'd carry them back to the building. Well, Les doesn't want these, so he's given them to me. That's very kind of him. And so 2, 4, 5. That's 5 more tubs that I can grow carrots and parsnips in. I just got to find somewhere to put them and purchase the sand to go in with the soil, and the soil, of course. I haven't got any spare soil to grow carrots and parsnips. So that'll cost a little bit of money, but you know, that'll last a few years. It'll be an investment. So I'm very happy with that. So as I walk down a rather miserable, dank, wet plot, which is to be expected in January. Allotments never look their best in the middle of winter. I just wanted to show you where I put all that timber, all my bean poles, etc. So this is the very end of my allotment, the end of my ground, and as I swing you around you can see there I drove in 2 stakes, and behind those 2 stakes I have stacked my bean poles. I'm going to need more for the summer, because I have plans to grow all my beans and well, yeah, all my beans up wigwams rather than the more conventional allotment bean frame. So I will need more, but there they are, stacked neatly, not in the way of the thoroughfare, because I know John comes through here when he parks in the car park, and he walks through my plot to get to his own. So they're not in his way, and they're stacked neatly for me to use. So yeah, this is how it's looking on January the 4th 2021. One job I had at work one day was doing a bit of a garden clearance after an elderly lady died, and her daughter wanted to clear her back garden. Was these 2 trays that were in her greenhouse, and I said I'd take them, and that's very kind of her, she let me. One of the problems I had with my main crop potatoes was they were in excellent condition inside these tubs, not a mark on them, but they were small, and of course you want main crops for jacket potatoes, etc., and they were too small for that. So I think it's down to watering and the fact that these tubs get very hot and don't hold the rainwater well. So I thought I'd try an experiment with these 2 trays with these 5 tubs. In fact, I could put a 6th in there, couldn't I? And see if holding them in those trays and watering the tubs and then filling the drip trays so that they've got a constant supply, so they don't dry out so readily. I'm hoping that might make a difference to my main crop potatoes. I shall report back later in the year. If anything ever told you how little I have to do on my plot right now, I'm making a ladder out of this piece of pallet to sit against my shed, because I've now worked out that, whether it's due to the wood I'm using, I don't know, but I have to clean out the chimney on my stove at least once a fortnight, because it blocks up with residue from the wood. So, you know, once every fortnight I have to get up there, take the pull the chimney out through the sleeve and clean it out with a wire brush, and I use my white patio chair to get that normally, and it sinks straight into that the chip-ins, and because the ground's so soft. So I'm now making a ladder to sit there permanently. I shall paint it green, and then I can do that nice and easily. But that's how little I have to do on the plot, pottering and titivating to a new level. Well, we all know what we've been missing over Christmas and New Year, and that is a bit of culture. So, starting off the allotment culture for 2021 is a battle axe. And sometimes when I read these out, I'm unsure whether the phrases I'm talking about have made it across the pond to North America. But I know this one has, because that's where it originates. A battle axe is a comic, if not offensive, term for belligerent and stubborn old women. Its origins can be found in America and the early years of the women's rights movement. The phrase itself was originally meant as a rallying or war cry, but backfired when the movement published a journal called the Battle Axe to signify their resolve. Instead, the phrase was quickly used as a derogatory term for the domineering and hostile nature of the majority involved in that movement, and as a reflection of what many, including less aggressive women, thought of its members. My mother-in-law comes to mind. God bless her. It's all right, Cheryl doesn't watch these. Right, beyond the pale is usually applied to someone who has committed an unspeakable act or behaves immorally. A pale, historically, is an area around a town or city which was subject to a particular jurisdiction and was governed by the king or one of his lords. Areas outside the pale were generally regarded as lawless and uncouth, so unaccountable peasants of medieval England, Ireland and France, because of course we held towns in France and Ireland, were regarded by relatively civilised townfolk as from beyond the pale. I didn't know that. I sort of always assumed it a pail as in a bucket, but no, a pail was an area of land. Well, I hope you find those interesting. Time for a second brew, I think. Well, I've said before and I'll say it again, my carpentry will never win any awards, but once that's painted green and it sort of disappears and blends into the shed, that is the perfect safe aid to get me up to take off that, what do you call it, the bit on the top of the chimney. Yes, very happy with that. Well, my last video before Christmas, I did that thing where I swept round and showed my allotment each month from January through to December. I enjoy doing that. I shall do that every year because I think it's a very visual picture of how an allotment, you know, sitting dormant as it is now and very dreary, starts to build through the spring, is at its most beautiful and verdant in summer, and then slowly through autumn as we harvest, dies off and goes back to bed for winter again. But this time, just as we move into 2021, I thought I'd do a little bit. I think most YouTubers do this, where they look back and then look forward. I've just written a few notes, so if you'll excuse me wearing these god-awful glasses. I think one of the jobs to do this year is to get to the optician. I think when I realised I needed glasses for reading, I went to the optician in town in Chepstow. That's got to be 7 or 8 years ago, at least, if not longer. And I've never got new glasses since. I've never been back to the optician, despite various reminder letters and so on. And I've only got one pair of glasses now, and they're tatty, and these are some that were given to me. They work in a manner. Anyway, I digress. So looking back, just a few notes, and if you'll excuse me reading from them. Last year, as you know, I worked, my major project was the paths and the beds. And although, over the last few weeks, with the incredible amount of rain we've had, there's been a bit of surface water. The paths are all walkable. I can move about my plot as I see fit. And it's been an absolute success. I'm very happy with it. I've got one more bed to do, and that's the bed with the Brussels sprouts in. And when they're finished, I shall be digging that out and putting manure in. I grew far too many crops too early in the season. You know that sense of, you want to get things sown because you've waited all winter and the spring comes along and you start putting seeds in and it's all very exciting. The trouble is, but with runner beans, we don't eat runner beans in the summer. That's, for us, it's a crop that you eat in the autumn and winter with a cooked meal. French beans is not so bad because you can cook them, chop them up and put them cold on a salad. But runner beans, particularly parsnips, various crops we grew far too early, and they were ready in the summer and we didn't want to eat them then. For some reason last year the runner beans were a particular problem because they came and went within about 2 or 3 weeks. They didn't crop for long, and it was in July and it was just too soon. Anyway, so this year I need to delay the sowing of the beans, the different beans, and a few other crops, things like leeks, and let them mature later in autumn and winter. The potatoes were very successful, but were very small, and I've mentioned that as I've walked around the plot. So I need to work on that. So those drip trays that I was given, I need a couple more of those. If I can't get a couple more of those, I don't want to spend money if I can help it. Then I have to find something else that they can sit in. I can hear voices. Next, I grew a lot of tomato plants, but I didn't stake them properly. So I need to work on that. They all collapsed, they got blight. I'm growing completely blight resistant varieties this year, and I need to be a lot better at staking them. Yeah, and there's I've made a couple of other notes about the shed being the highlight of my plot, and for obvious reasons. And obviously one of the best things I did last year was that costume, which I've mentioned. I'm happy I did that. So let's have a look forward. More parsnips and carrots in tubs. I've mentioned that. I've shown you the tubs. So I can probably quadruple the amount of parsnips and carrots we grew. Grow the winter crops much later. Well, I've mentioned that. And I've also mentioned putting the potatoes in the tubs in trays to keep water around the base. My major project this year is rainwater collection, and I've mentioned that, and I need to work on that. I need more of these blue drums to collect water. And another thing I want to do this year that I've dabbled with but never really got serious about is making my own fertiliser, nettle tea and comfrey fertiliser. I'm going to really take that seriously this year. I don't buy any fertilisers, you know, because it's not strictly organic, is it? I don't know, but I don't. I just feed the soil, and the soil feeds the plants. But comfrey and nettle makes complete sense to me, as I have both available. Anyway, that's just my little look back and look forward. Well, I've had enough. Not done a great deal, but finished that ladder. I've cleaned out the chimney completely, cleaned out the fire, redone it. So that's a good little job. Chopped a bit more firewood, picked some Brussels sprouts and some leeks for tea tonight. Had a bit of a tidy up around the plot. Yeah, just potted really, and I spent a lot of time here in the shed reading through my seed catalogue. Easily pleased. And when I get home this afternoon and I've finished doing this video, I will spend my time carefully filling in my seed order and getting that away tonight. And that's an exciting moment in the allotment year. I think the allotment year started last October, as you start to prepare the beds and put them to bed, depending on what you're going to grow in each bed next year, i.e. this year. So we're a couple of months into the new growing year really, but sending off the seed order and then more excitingly getting it really is the start of it. So at whatever stage you're at, I wish you well with this year's growing, and I wish you happiness and good health throughout the year. And this is the first one of the year, and I look forward to many more. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing if you have. hit the thumbs up if you wouldn't mind, and all being well, I shall be back in another couple of weeks and I'll post another video. Look after yourselves. Bye for now.